You know, after that whole video I talked about rambling about the whole Archon quest that we had recently and how I didn't understand not anything of the quest because I was the most confused person on the planet when it come down to it. There's a lot of questions that I now have to kind of ask because I don't really see one anybody asking this, and two, I think there's a few questions in here that just like adding up to overall the bigger points of, Genshin's story as a whole. Because I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of things that, obviously we getting questions for, but no big ass answers to come through. And it's a little weird each and every time that, patches like these comes out, no one's really asking the bigger questions of overall story and things of the sort like that, right? Between Skirk's whole, quest and the Archon quest, there is equally a lot of stuff to be said here that is going to shape up the game and just the future of the story, which makes me wonder how the hell do you move past that once a lot of the stuff that has to happen or is going to happen gets done. So it just makes me wonder how the hell they're going to go about this. One of the biggest questions, and I think probably will be the title for the video if I feel like it is, that I really now have to ask too, is why specifically did the twins come to Teyvat, right? Like, obviously we know that the homeworld of the twins, of where they came from, essentially got effed over by whatever the hell, whether it's some type of abyss something nonsense or whether it's some type of, I don't know what Honkai Impact has, but that thing, or whatever the hell, it could be a mystery third thing, I don't know, a cum ghost. But when it comes down to it though, what we don't know is exactly why they chose Teyvat specifically. Because if Teyvat is essentially, how it always looked like, with the red kind of shield around it to kind of make it look like it's a part of the universe and all that sort of stuff, they would have no idea that, Teyvat existed out there unless they just happen to know and, explore, just go out beyond their world to maybe research things, maybe that, but I don't feel like that would be the case, and I feel like that'd be kind of a cop-out. I'm not gonna sit here and lie, but when it comes down to it though, they literally had to escape their own homeworld, use those spaceships with the hibernation chamber, and I would assume that, that's just how it is for them. They end up flying around in space until Conria decided to be like, you know what, we need to summon some boys. Let's just summon some people here for X reason that we still do not know. And then a curious part about this too as well is that the heavens responded to the summoning. That is an actual quote from the game that relates to what the Conrians did by trying to bring, the twins here, or trying to bring somebody from beyond the stars here. Because hell, I don't even think it was said that, they was, specifically trying to bring the twins here. They were just saying that, they need to bring somebody here, and then the heavens responded by bringing the twins here. Right? And then one thing that obviously has been now established with that new Archon quest is very much simply that the Abyss sibling does not remember dick, cock, and or balls about what happened before, anything of anything, right? They kind of just existed in Conria and had their whole memories erased from basically every other thing, and essentially kind of just been ruling Conria for a long period of time. What was the purpose of their memories getting yoinked away? That's one of the biggest questions I had in that video that we talked about recently. And that's one of the bigger things, because once we figured that out, that explains some other things. But then what also could explain some things too is just, again, why the hell is it them specifically, and or maybe why the hell did they go to Teyvat specifically when it comes down to it too, right? Because here's the whole ass thing, at least what I'm currently thinking of, is that maybe they just wanted, I guess, like, protectors of this world under the gods bidding. I don't know, like, because I'm thinking like, all right, so obviously you have like a gang of descendants that came down to Teyvat. The heavily principles, the first descender, came through, bodied the hell out the dragons, basically took they women, slapped they kids, and then absolutely charged them with IRS taxes. That's just how it was for the first descender, and he established this whole new government and all this sort of stuff, right? Then the second one that came, if I'm correct, I'll have to look at it and see, but I believe he also caused like a lot of, he or she caused like a lot of dumbassery to happen, like a lot of fighting and battling and just the most absolute beatdown that anybody has thrown out when it comes down to another Descender coming through, right? So I believe that's the case. Like, I don't know what happened, but that battle between the second who came and the Heavenly Principles literally ripped heaven apart and basically effed over the entirety of the world. And even that's the reason why Economia is in the place where it is today, because it fell into the dang sea, right? So a lot of nonsense caused by, you know, that whole meeting with those two people, right? We don't know exactly the full details because it's never been explained yet. We don't know exactly why they fought in the first place. Was the second who came just an evil asshole that just wanted to just F over everybody just because they could? I don't know. It's not explained yet. So honestly, all we can maybe take an idea or a guess from all this is that maybe after that fight, the Heavenly Principal said, oh hell no, we're not going through that shit ever again. I put all of this work into building this land that I stole from these dragons, and you mean to tell me I almost got my ass beat by some random ass dude that come out of nowhere trying to pretend to be another me? Nah, we ain't having this happen. So that's when maybe the third Descender popped up, and maybe they said, alright, any future Descenders that come through, we're gonna manipulate, I can speak, we're gonna manipulate the hell out of these people, right? Doesn't matter what we gotta do, just get them under our heel so we can absolutely win, because we're not trying to, you know, F over this planet again, right? So maybe that's the reason why the third Descender got turned into pieces of the Gnosis, and his body, his or her body is just, you know, kind of in that position, right? So maybe that's the reason, that's the why. Granted, we don't really know much about the third Descender, and I don't think Genshin's gonna bother to explain it, even though I feel like it should explain who the hell that is. At least that's my hope. But still, nonetheless, you know, that's what ended up ultimately becoming the third Descender. And then now with, you know, Traveler, really twins at one point, being both kind of the fourth Descender-ish type of thing. But, you know, they kind of got effed over in a weird ass way, right? Because obviously them escaping their home planet, trying to figure out another place to live so they can go ahead and chill. Ultimately, the heavens responded to the summoning of the Conrans, and then they did something. They did something to cause one twin to be in Conria and have literally their memories erased until, you know, a focus point in time where they just like, huh, I remember I have a relative somewhere. Why the hell did it take me 5,000 years? I don't know, right? And then the other Traveler is basically just chilling somewhere else, asleep for a good chunk of change, right? So that's also like another thing, because, and again, that's kind of where I'm like, you know what, I can definitely see some foul play when it comes down to our Traveler here, because we didn't know anything, and we just probably were in stasis for like a very long period of time. Because it's kind of crazy how, you know, the Abyss sibling wanted to look for, you know, the Traveler in some shape and form, and was looking across these damn countries trying to figure out where the hell they at, only for after the fall of Congress to be like, oh yeah, now I found you, now I see the cooking session, and then ultimately it just, you know, that's when they found them, not before, maybe after they scoured the lands for so many years, right? Because you gotta realize this is like 500 years to the present day what we have. You mean to tell me in the whole 500 years that you've been basically here cooking around this place trying to find clues like you're some type of Scooby-Doo detective, a shitty Scooby-Doo detective, but when it comes down to it, you mean to tell me that in all those years you haven't found your own sibling, right? You should pretty much be familiar with this planet by now for 500 years, and now you found them like right when the thing is over? You know, and granted, we don't know the specific, you know, the specified time of how any of this stuff kind of goes, but it is kind of weird that they only found them after. Maybe Istroff did some nonsense to maybe hide the twins somewhere and just hold it over so they can't necessarily interrupt, I guess, like the destruction of Condria in some shape or form. I don't know. One thing I kind of want to quickly go back and add to this whole thing too, that makes me just question a lot of stuff about Conria, is definitely, do they believe in deities or do they actually don't, right? Because like, if the whole damn thing about summoning somebody to this world and then, you know, the heavens responded to said summoning, that would mean there would have been some divine, you know, intervention of some kind in some shape and form, unless they already knew Conrad was going to just do the obvious thing of just touch the abyss and, you know, get folded by it in some shape and form, right? Because let's just keep it very much a second. Remember that, you know, when the abyss sibling was there, they end up have a whole run-in with like King Ermin, and then they had to absorb a unlimited amount of abyssal energy, and then, you know, because it was too dang much, they had to end up splitting it apart into 5 different people, and that's kind of where the 5 center stuff come from. And then soon as that kind of happened, at least right after that, the Heavenly Principles was not amused, and then that's when they just started, you know, just to beat the shit out of Conrad to non-existence, and that's what ended up happening. So they got a gift, so they basically wished for something. They got the gift from the gods themselves to have what they wanted, but then ultimately they turned, I guess you could say, they turned their backs on the very same deities that they said they quote don't worship at all, and then essentially just got folded because how dare you spit in the face of divine help, right? And maybe that is the case, but then again, granted, there's still a lot of windows of gaps and of logic and leaps and bounds that still doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because again, if that was just the case and that's all Conrans wanted, basically, I guess, to maybe, I don't know, have some type of protection or some type of king or what, or you know, I guess like a heir to Conria or something like that, why the hell did it go the way it did? Why the hell did the Heavenly Principles tamper with, you know, the twins in the first damn place, if that's all they really wanted? Again, it could be just the fact that they Ben knew that this was going to be the case and that's what's going to happen. I don't know. It's very much a lot of questions that we just don't know. And now with all this kind of happening, I'm kind of low-key confused as to who the actual bad guy of the game is, right? Like, yes, obviously the Abyss needs to be handled in some shape and form, but then Skirt's Quest was like, oh yeah, you can't really destroy a lot of power, it just goes somewhere else, or some shit like that. I don't really know. Then at the very same time, it's just like, okay, so obviously the Abyss is evil, they want nothing but just to body people, because that's just how they operate, right? But then some people in Conria were just kind of assholes too, but then it kind of is like, okay, but was it, I'm assuming when, you know, the twin absorbed the whole abyssal power, they had really seconds to kind of think of, okay, where do I shoot this damn energy at, or how do I kind of deal with this sort of stuff? And so maybe they had that, you know, as a last minute resort, or maybe it was planned to give these people the power of the abyss and all that sort of stuff, which is one of the dumbest things, if I'm going to be honest, if that is actually the plan. And, you know, if it wasn't a forced situation on the abyss sibling to kind of shoot out the whole abyssal power towards these 5 individuals, you know, this could be very much easily one of the most shittiest things you could have ever planned, to give the power of the abyss to 5 random ass people that genuinely have very much different mindsets of what they want to do. As we have seen, especially in Skirt's Quest with Sir Logi, and how this man is supposed to be hella OP, world breaker, fate breaker, and all these other sort of things entirely, out here bodying the shit out of planets for fun, just because it's a random ass Tuesday, like he's M. Bison. You know, it's just like, why give these random people, like, you know, any authority over the abyss? Why would you let that happen, right? Was it the fact that, you know, you was playing with abyssal power that, you know, Heavenly Principles found out, like, oh shit, so that's how y'all gonna treat me? And then they want to box the hell out of them. So maybe they split it up to maybe hope that those 5 would just beat ass of the Heavenly Principles and do something, but clearly they didn't do a damn thing. And supposedly it's supposed to be on Dane's fault that he was supposed to, you know, keep people safe in Conria and fix the whole problem. I don't know. I can only also imagine that maybe Lamine, or whoever this sibling is, maybe they decided to be like, you know what, hey, there's some bullshit that's about to come through to Conria, and I ain't gonna be here, so I'm gonna need you to come through and absolutely decimate whatever the hell is gonna go on and fix the problem, right? I'm outies. And maybe that's what ended up happening, and somehow Dane was supposed to stop all this shit, where there was no damn way a single soldier, a single human soldier of this land is supposed to stop a whole bunch of gods fighting and literally the power of hell of itself, just trying to stop these people from taking it from themselves. Like, there is no way. What the hell did you expect Dane to do? Right? There is no way. Hell, at this point, especially with Sir Logi and the lore we got from Skirk's quest, there is no damn way Dane could even beat someone like that. I can't see that shit, right? And that's why I was so confused by Dane in the actual quest itself too, to kind of add into this, because a lot of people also was of the notion of, like how I was, thinking that Dane was just terribly written and, wasn't necessarily actually doing what he should be doing and having a brain and all that sort of stuff. And while I also will still remain on that hill that yes, I do feel like he's being hella dumb, but I also think this is a way for the game to tell us that Dane is kind of unreliable when it comes down to, I guess, like his own sense of his mind, his own sense of character narration and stuff like that, right? Because easily he can sit here and say, yeah, Connery is not coming back and all of this other stuff is not happening, and this is what we should be focusing on, right? Being so as far as to be delusional to literally risk his memories getting taken just so he can body the hell out of some abyss monsters, when there's obviously a more giant pressing matter at hand here. Again, he is the person that said there was no need to revive the homeland, yet you're giving the people that you hate the very same use and reason as to how they can revive the homeland. It's just a bit weird. I do feel like Dane is very much not necessarily grasping the full context of what is going on here, and I think that's on purpose. I don't think they're just doing this shit just because, maybe it's written terribly or something like that. I think it's because they have a reason for him to be on that sort of hill, right? Because any sane person that has been living for 500 years plus and knowing what the hell they know, yeah, I'd be very much wise to try to figure out how to stop all this stuff from happening while also not giving the enemy what they want, because that's essentially just giving them what they want. And ultimately, I'm pretty dang certain Dane doesn't know anything about the whole, looping situation of the entire world, which I have a better understanding of that too now, considering that it's just like, oh, the whole thing with deer death and everything like that, it's just a looping situation. I get it. It's hard to explain, but I get it. It's best to watch some like Cat with Blue Hats for, to break down the quest and how they kind of put it together, because that's the only way I understood it. But essentially, it makes me wonder too, if this is like, I don't know, how many times have the planet looped, right? Because it's not, because here's the thing, Teyvat's not a simulation. I know a lot of people will say it's a simulation, but I don't think it's a actual computer simulation of some kind. And maybe it is, because there's a lot of glitchy shit that just happens out of nowhere, right? There's a lot of glitchy shit that happens for whatever weird ass reason. So I'll take that back. I won't say it's, can't be a computer, but I don't think it's a true simulation, because it's obviously, being manipulated by the gods themselves and, trying to force the hands of a lot of people when it comes down to what they really want. And Istroff kind of just, I feel like it's also Istroff just mainly manipulating the game of how things is kind of done, right? So I feel like there is definitely that of how, and I feel like they're really probably the main key of why Teyvat is looping over and over again. But still, we don't know how many times they looped, right? We don't even know when the hell they first stopped to put that in motion, to be honest. There's a lot of things we just still do not know. Well, regardless of everything though, I now fully understand, what the actual important stuff was here, or at least what the important questions that we should be wanting to know and asking about certain things, because I don't know, it just feels a little weird. I would say though, it would have been nice if the quest itself kind of gave us a little hint as to what is the whole thing about, why this everything happened, especially from the Abyss Twin perspective, right? When it comes down to, why certain things is happening. I kind of wish they hinted at the Traveler that the world is looping, right? Maybe saying that we're just being played, or something is happening again, or saying something that would imply, time manipulation of some sort, because I don't really know how the Traveler is supposed to know this. I don't really know how, in some shape and form. They're going to, but I don't know how, right? And that's just like the whole damn thing when it comes down to that too, right? So I don't know. There's a lot of things that they could do here, right? And especially to add into more stuff as well. I guess we have Skirk now, and while we won't see her for a long ass period of time, I wouldn't be surprised if she also decides to challenge the Heavenly Principles in some shape or form, or becomes like a fifth Descender of some way and somehow, and that's just kind of how it is, right? And because I mean, if anything is to go by her whole quest, by, you know, literally what I guess Sir Logi said with Volvanir's whole visionary prophecy about Skirk, saying that the stars will bend to her in her honor. Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty powerful ass threat. That's a pretty powerful ass threat that even the Heavenly Principles is gonna have to deal with at some point in time. And I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up helping us in our favor, trying to, you know, I don't know, beat the Heavenly Principles, solve the problem with all the stuff that's been going on. Again, it goes back to that question of who actually is the villain here, because by all intents and purposes, it just feels like the Heavenly Principles is a villain, but at the same time, they wouldn't have put a whole shell over Teyvat itself for a reason. They wouldn't have done this stuff for a reason, because, like, again, we just don't know what exactly is out there trying to kill everything in the universe, and, you know, we don't know why all this stuff is kind of happening with Teyvat as it is. I don't know. Again, there's a lot of things that we just don't know, and it goes into questions of answers that we don't have at the moment in time. But as the game obviously will continue, we'll understand more how things work. And yeah, there's just a lot that goes on to this game. A lot more than what we thought started in the very beginning, where it's just like, oh yes, it's medieval settings and, you know, just fighting dragons or whatever. And now it's just like fighting gods to time manipulation and all that sort of stuff. And it's just gone to a really wild and time for everybody. But that's essentially, I guess, all I really wanted to talk about for this one. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on way out. Also follow my socials, and if you'd like to donate to the channel, Kofi and Cash App is available as well. And until then, it's been boy Jay, sign off. Have a blessed day.